Give us our atmospheric lighting. Ooh. Well, thank you everyone for coming to Cosplay on a Budget. I'm Tabby.
I'm Mariam.
And we are going to take you through a whirlwind how-to on how to enjoy cosplay while also not destroying your bank account or your mental health. That is a pretty big theme, or both, yes, and or to the bingo board. So what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about how to budget for your hobby. We're going to talk about buying cosplay on a budget, and we're going to talk about making cosplay on a budget. If you do have questions, hold them to the end. We have factored in time for questions, discussion, general fighting, you know, all that good stuff. So why should you listen to me? Why should you listen to the person sat here wearing a ball mask on their shoulder? So I've been cosplaying since 2006. So I am 30 years old this year, so I've been cosplaying for a decent portion of my life. I've cosplayed as a high schooler with zero money. I have cosplayed as a university student, also with zero money, and then also as an adult earning actually less than minimum wage, and as an adult with like a normal level of money. So in regards to budgeting, I have done it all, and I have a lot of experience with making things with $5. So let's get the mean stuff out the way first. Your hobby is not more important than eating food. And this applies for going to cons and doing new cosplays. The amount of people that I follow on Instagram who post stories and say things like, oh, can someone like PayPal me money? I have £20 left in my bank account for the month to eat. And then their next story is like, check out this new Genshin Impact costume I got. And I just want to reach my hand through the screen like a weird version of the girl from The Ring and just start battering people, right? Like it's very, and this is not something you see from one or two people. This is something you see from so many people. Oh, I'm going to con this weekend, but if someone wants to buy me a packet of crisps because I can't afford food, it's like, don't go to that convention. Oh my God. You need to be sensible about what you're doing. Do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, it might be worth mentioning, we see this a lot more from the younger generation and younger cosplayers than we do from older cosplayers, but I think it is still an eternal point.
And a big issue here is the presence of social media, because you go on your Instagram and you see everyone attending an event and you go, oh, I wish I was there, and so you think that if you're not there, you're missing out, you're not seeing people. Like, FOMO only applies because we're on social media.
And social media is built to show you things that are new and that are aligned with your interests. So if there's a new con going on and you like cons, it's going to be like, hey, do you want to see this thing that's happening? And it doesn't realize that it's making you feel terrible for not being there.
And even if you have budgeted for the convention, you don't need a new cosplay every single convention. Like, trends are made up. These are pictures from Minamicon last year, where we cosplayed Fairy Tail, that very famously new anime that everyone is cosplaying, and Fate Strange Fake, which is a Fate light novel that does not even have a real anime yet. None of this matters. It's literally just about hanging out with your friends. You don't need a new cosplay from Doki Doki in order to go to the Minamicon hotel bar and get shit-faced on Saturday night. It's just not necessary. We were in bed at 9 p.m. last time, but that's not the point. We still weren't doing it in new cosplays that we bought. So the other thing to remember is that there's no convention season anymore. So people who are older in the community, you'll remember when there was a time of the year when you had conventions. That's not a thing. It's not spring and summer. You've got your events and it ends with October MCM. You've got things in December. You've got things in January now. So it's really important that you need to actually start factoring in how you plan conventions and cosplays during your year, and that's kind of the most important thing. Every December, Mariam and I sit down and we go, right, 2025, what conventions are we planning? What do we need to book hotels for? What do we need to buy tickets for? When do we need to do those things? What cosplays are we wearing? Is this a new cosplay? Is this one we already have? What's the cost of getting the new cosplay or making it? What's the cost of fixing up the cosplay? And we put this into, or I put it into a notes on my phone, which Mariam hates.
Absolute.
Mariam puts it in like a fancy little Google thing. So.
It's not a Google thing.
Oh, I don't know what it is then.
I just have actual organization methods and Tabby has notes on. But either way, we both remain organized. And also, I think it's important to mention that that's the priority order. If we definitely want to go to a certain con, whether or not we're in a new costume for that con is not the important thing. The important thing is that we go to the con and we budget to be able to go to the con, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that shows there our order of operations. And so this was February, okay, we're going to go to Minamicon UK. How much is the hotel? How much is the ticket? what are we bringing? And then you go from there. And once you have your list of what you're doing that year, knowing that this might change, you might add an event or things like that, but then you can budget in adding those events, right? If you've got your list of conventions, you're like, I'm going to 6 things this year, and then suddenly your friend says, oh, I really want to go to this new event, do you want to go? You can look at your budget and go, well, actually, I do have room in my budget to attend that event, which I didn't plan for, because I've planned for everything else. Or you can go, no, I can't do that, but maybe I'll plan it for next year, right? So it helps with a lot of stress, and also making sure you're not overspending on a hobby which is literally dressing up.
And also it helps with FOMO, because if you know what you're going to and why, then you no longer feel like you're missing out on something because you knew it was an option and you chose not to take it.
I just smacked myself in the face with the microphone. So let's talk about buying cosplay on a budget to start with. So buying cosplay, you're thinking, I want to do this costume, what am I going to do? So if you want to buy a costume new, the key thing is you need to research where you want your costume from. So there's a couple different places. Taobao resellers, so Taobao, for those of you who don't know, is a Chinese, so kind of like equivalent to eBay, basically, but you can only order from it if you are in China. So there are websites like Doki Doki, Cosplay Biner, Wowo, who are Taobao resellers, who you can go on their website, you're buying the Taobao costume for slightly more because they actually will ship to you internationally. And this is where a lot of people get things like Genshin Impact costumes. This is Mariam and I in our like, we don't have a lot of ball costumes, so these are the ones that we do have, in our nice Doki Doki Genshin cosplays. But that's not the only place. So you can buy costumes new on marketplaces like eBay and AliExpress. I've done that a couple times. You can get things commissioned. So if there's a really obscure costume you want, or you can't deal with the standard sizing, because let's be real, the Taobao resellers and marketplaces have the worst sizing known to mankind. No one fits into these sizes at all. You can get it commissioned, so it's more comfortable for you. So places like Etsy, Cosmosi is a new website set up by some people in the States that connects commissioners and commissionees. So if you want something commissioned, you can post it on that website, and then people who are looking for commissions to pick up can then say, oh, I can do this for you for this amount, blah, blah, blah. There are other websites as well which aren't Taobao resellers but are basically the same thing, and this is things like Mick Costumes, Cosplay Sky. The key thing is check reviews, right? Absolutely check reviews. The majority of websites are okay, but you never want to take the risk when you're putting money to get a costume.
Yeah. I don't remember if this comes up later, but I'm going to just mention it now since we have both AliExpress and the Taobao resellers listed. AliExpress also, some of the costumes you'll see on there are Taobao resale, and they might be cheaper than the dedicated Taobao resellers, so it might be literally the same thing, they're both just putting on a different amount of like commission.
Yeah, it's one thing that's interesting on that point, because that doesn't come up later, is it's about how savvy you are with the websites. So for instance, Doki Doki has a system where they rate their costumes, so you've got R, SR and SSR, and it's a different quality. And so a lot of people like Doki Doki, not because it's cheaper, but because then you don't have to think. You look at the costume, you go, right, I want the medium detail work, I'll just go for that one. Whereas for AliExpress, while it is the exact same costumes, you've got to troll through a lot more pages and do a lot more work for you to match up what the quality is of each costume.
Because the R, SR and SSR aren't actually the same producer doing different levels of detail. It's just Doki Doki going, okay, these people make it, but it's not as nice as these people, and it's not as nice as these people. So they just take out the work of you having to do that comparison.
Yeah, so it's how much effort and how much work you want to do, and what the cost-benefit ratio. Cost-benefit ratio, yes, and what the cost-benefit ratio is. So let's talk about some tips and tricks for buying new. Keeping an eye out for sales. If you, at the end of 2024, plan all your cosplays for 2025, there is no reason why you can't go, oh my god, the Christmas and New Year's sale is on. I know I'm going to wear that costume in August. It's cheaper right now. I'm going to get it right now. Because then when you want to try and buy it in March and it's full price, you're not looking at the full price anymore because you already bought it. So planning your cosplays in advance allows you to take advantage of sales that all of these websites are going to have because they're trying to get your money. And the other thing is when you're buying new is to think about what your budget is. So as we've talked about with the different level of detail, there are price points for these different levels. Just because a costume says it's high quality doesn't mean you need the higher quality one. Again, if your plan is to buy a cosplay to go hang out in the Minamicon bar, do you need an SSR quality cosplay, or is the 50 quid one where you get to be the character that you really love and hang out with your friends going to be enough for you?
And also, is the higher quality one going to actively hindrance you? Because usually higher quality means harder to wear and harder to manage. So.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an aspect of it just because it is technically better quality doesn't mean it's going to be better for you. A lot of times you can get around that just by if you're doing something popular, right? You can see other people at the convention who have the costume that you might want. Just go up to them and talk to them. Be like, where is this one from? You know, what quality is it? Like, what do you like about it? The majority of people are going to talk to you. I think the only time I've ever approached someone who was like, no, I'm not going to tell you my secrets of what eBay shop I got this from, was like once in my life. And again, I have been doing this for a very long time. So the majority of people are going to give you like a whole fashion show. It's like if you ask someone if their dress has pockets, and they're like, yes, my dress has pockets, do you want to see them? It's exactly the same bullshit. Well, okay, I guess we don't like, you don't like my picture on this one. Right, so let's talk about buying cosplay used. So again, this is about research. Yes, it is my Fuji cosplay. So you can buy a lot of things secondhand. So marketplaces, again, eBay, Vinted, Depop, social media websites, so Facebook Marketplace. There's so many like UK buy and sell Facebook cosplay groups. People post stuff on Instagram and Discord. Obviously, the key thing is if you're going to buy something from not an actual shopping website, you need to buy securely. So if someone on Facebook is like, yeah, use PayPal, friends and family, the answer is no, go away. Just be smart about it. Obviously, the benefit to buying used is that it tends to be cheaper. There are some people who are really scammy and do try and sell used costumes for the same price or more because they're like, oh, you can't get it on the website anymore. And it's like, yeah, but I need to get it on another website. So do your research again, make sure you're not being scammed in regards to price, even if they do send it to you. What's nice about buying used is also you can do like trades and things like that. So a lot of people will be like, well, I really like this fandom and I want to keep cosplaying from it, but I don't want to be this character anymore. Does anyone want to trade this costume for another one in the same size? So that's really fun. That's nice community building as well. And then there's no money involved. Buying cosplay secondhand is really, really good. This is an example. I bought this free jacket from my friend so I could lay on the floor of HataruCon.
Hibana, surely.
No, this was first. Oh, there was Hibana. HibanaCon, and look like an otter. Definitely good use of 15 quid. So the other thing is that obviously, if you're buying cosplays, think about selling them on if you're not using them. If you're not wearing something, it's taking up space, and also, as you've seen, there is a second-hand market. So you can get money back from that costume that you can then use to buy more costumes. Incredible!
So this is the other note about like actual literal numbers of budget, because if you are selling your cosplays, you're topping up that pot again, you're topping up that budget.
Yeah, and also it's about reducing waste. So you're not throwing it out and you're getting funds out of it, which is really good. We need to remember that there is a lot of fast fashion elements to buying cosplay, and it's very important to limit our impact on that.
We have a whole other panel about that.
We do. We have a whole other panel on sustainability in cosplay, but we're doing cosplay on a budget. Maybe we'll get to that at the end. So now we'll talk about making cosplay on a budget. So yes, the number one thing you can do is to start well in advance. If you're sitting there in February, like, Minamicon's in a month. What should I make? Yeah, our friend there is like just hiding.
It's not our fault.
To be fair, it is not their fault.
Giving us ideas for things and then going, we're doing this. And we're like, you've given us a month to pull shit together.
Yes, so
over Christmas, Tabby.
Yes, so there are some extenuating circumstances for starting well in advance, which is when your friend watches season 6 of My Hero Academia 3 times in a row, and then decides that this is now their entire personality, and then everyone is going to make these costumes immediately. So extenuating circumstances aside, starting your cosplay well in advance will help you save money. And that means that you would then have an excess of money for when your friend turns around and goes, so anyway, Matsuri League of Villains in a month and a half? So what is the best way to actually start things early? Again, it all comes down to planning. So as I said, I have a notes thing on my phone which has about 96 notes, one of which just says cosplays to do. That's how I take notes. It works for me. Mariam hates it.
I hate it so much.
However, if you are not a sociopath and you do need an actual functioning system, there are apps out there. So Cosplanner and Cosplay Amino are quite old ones, but they do the trick. They really, really do. These allow you to actually make archives of costumes that you've made, write descriptions, and then actually upload pictures. Cosplanner allows you to itemize lists of things and then add prices and then actually tick them off or basically change when you've actually done something. So these are really useful.
Yeah, and also just whichever apps, if you are the type of person who does enjoy organizing their life. There are also other apps which are generally more marketed just towards productivity and that kind of thing, so like Notion and all that sort of stuff, which their features are really good for planning costumes as well, because it's the exact same idea, it's project management. So yeah.
And calendars as well. We were doing WCS last year, and I went around Mariam's house and she had this bright orange handwritten calendar of like when every piece of the costume had to be done by. I was blown away. I was like, this is the sickest thing I've ever seen. I'd never do this myself, but that was organization to the next level.
I was making the calendar to procrastinate on.
I didn't know that, but the point is that if you're more of a visual learner, if you need to see things, spatially, like that's also a really good way to do it, is to be like, okay, there's a convention in July, it's now January, I want to make it, what are the goalposts that I need to set? Well, okay, a wig will take a week, so I'm going to say this week is for the wig. I do the same thing, but again, I write it in my notes. It doesn't make it to a calendar. But also, you need to find what works for you, right? So try different apps, try different things, and see how you actually get the most progress and productivity out of it. But it's so important. So again, we talked about sales for when you're buying cosplay. The same applies for when you're buying material. So Arda used to do a Black Friday sale I think they still do, but I don't buy from Arda anymore because we're in the UK. And basically, the day before the Black Friday sale, my friends and I would sit down and create an itemized list of every wig we were going to need for the next year and a half. And we would put in like a $300 Arda order because it was, ridiculously cheap. We got it all together, and then you got all of the bonus sales on top of like the regular sales that they did. But we had to plan that. We would literally be there the night before, putting it in the group chat, making sure we knew who was going to go through it, making sure we had a backup in case the site crashed, all that kind of stuff. And it saved us a ton of money. And this is really key for making sure that you are getting the most bang for your buck when you're making costumes. So many other websites will do sales on different events. Being on people's mailing lists, if it's a supplier that you're going to get a lot of stuff from, so like Coscraft, Polyprops, right, for foam, they're going to send out things like, 5% off your next order on the mailing list. That's free to sign up for. You can use a spam email. No one uses their main email anymore for this kind of stuff. I do, because I can't remember more emails, but most people don't. And then you can save money that way. The other thing to remember is that when you're buying stuff, cheaper items are going to have a longer shipping time. So this features back into how much time you have to plan. If you want 5 meters of gold trim and it's going to cost you £2 from China, but it's going to take a month and a half to get there because it's being carried by donkey, it's going to be better than like £10 for the 5 meters of trim because they're yeeting it over the ocean in an Amazon drone, right? I don't actually know anything works.
Scientifically accurate.
Scientifically accurate. Well, I got caught out on this because it wasn't last year, I think it was the year before. I surprise bought a Joker from Persona 5 costume to troll Mariam. I don't like Persona 5, but she was cosplaying it, and so I was like, I'm going to buy this costume. And it was true, like I could have bought it, and it could have been there in like a month and a half.
Sorry, just wanted to very briefly. We won pointless.
We won pointless! Oh my god! Dead Team Superstar! Well done, guys! I love you guys. We'll come find you after. I can't believe we won pointless.
We had to leave pointless early to run this panel.
Thank you. So yeah, and I could have bought the costume for about like £60, but then it would have taken like a month to get there, and I decided to do this with 2 weeks to go, so I had to spend, for about 90 or something.
More.
More than that, to get the actual costume to get to me on time. It was a decision I made. I budgeted for that decision, so it didn't matter.
It also kind of depended on your skill level because it meant you had very little time to do any adjustments that you needed when it arrived. But you thankfully had the skills.
That does come in later. I think we can talk about that.
Also on this, even just the like mini version, of course, planning all of your order weeks in advance for a big sale, cool. But also the smaller sort of things you can do is plan your cosplays in advance of, I don't know, MCM, you have a Coscraft stall and you'll save on shipping if nothing else. So it's, just being prepared in general is always gonna help you out.
And if you're someone who has extended family members who don't know that you're a weeb, don't understand that you're no longer 13 years old, and don't know what to get you for presents, getting gift cards to places that you can buy cosplay supplies from, or just getting them to buy cosplay supplies is another really good thing. That's not accessible to everyone, but if you're like, oh god, grandma's gonna get me another jewelry box shaped like a dog, she could buy you some foam instead. Great, like, yeah, foam, my favorite Christmas gift under the tree.
Do I want a pink dress or do I want a lot of foam?
Exactly. The other thing to remember is that the lower material cost you have, the longer the construction time is going to be. And I think I'm going to the next slide for an example of what I mean by this. No, I don't have another. Okay, I will explain this. There are different, not all foam, for instance, are born equal. Okay, there are some foam where it's aerated, it's high quality, it's plastizo. You cut that shit out, you slap paint on, you are done. It's good. But it's expensive. Whereas then you can go down to Hobbycraft, you can buy some craft foam, but that craft foam is going to require priming, it's going to require painting, it's going to require sealing. So while it's cheaper cost, it's going to be a lot more work to actually get it to the standard that you might want it at. And that's the key thing to remember. It's not that lower material cost is bad, it's that you need to factor in the time required to work with that lower material cost.
I think this is even more obvious with fabrics because I've made some mistakes with fabrics. Like the amount of fray you get, the amount of just wear. So I have a fabric on my Tainari cosplay, which just having worn the costume, the lining and the outer bit has just started to fall apart because even though I left a lot of seam on the inside, it's just frayed that badly, and the pressure, it's just pulled it away. And I just thought it was a really pretty fabric, but you need to actually pay attention to the quality.
Absolutely. So where can you buy stuff? You want to buy stuff cheap? Local markets and local craft shops are the best places to get stuff cheap. You might not think it because you're like, oh, my local haberdashery in the high street's not going to have what I want, but they will, and it'll be like £2 because it's owned by a little old lady. We went to get our WCS materials for this year. We went up to Bradford, walked around 8 different markets, and got everything for ridiculously cheap.
Less. We didn't even need to go around.
No, we didn't go around that many markets. It felt like that many markets.
But it was fun as well.
It was super
browsing. Fun. I've heard the phrase before that fabric shopping and sewing are 2 different hobbies and they're entirely distinct. So yeah, it can be quite fun.
The number of patterns I've bought on sale is vastly inferior to the number of costumes I have made using those patterns.
so valid.
And again, marketplace websites like eBay, AliExpress, these are going to have things cheaper. But the key thing is just to always be on the lookout. And again, if you've decided in December what you're making next year, when you go out, it's in the back of your mind. So if you see something and you're like, that'd be really good for the thing I want to make, you just get it, and it's always going to be cheaper and less stress to be getting things as you go than to be like, right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to blow so much money on this thing because I need everything to start now. But yeah, we really lucked out with the local markets. It really, really, really does make a difference.
It wasn't luck though, right? It was research, and we knew that there were local markets, so we knew what aesthetics we were going for the costumes and where we would be able to. So yeah, it's a time thing. It's researching and finding the places, but it's a very high ratio of reward to the amount of time we put in. Absolutely.
So yeah, let's talk a bit about foam. So I did touch on this briefly, but let's give something a bit more material to talk about what is the price difference. So if you're using foam for cosplay, the 3 most common foams you're going to see are Plastizo, EVA, and craft foam. Again, Plastizo, amazing, really, really great quality stuff, but it is at least double the price of EVA for the same amount. EVA, on the other hand, really accessible and is going to do basically the exact same thing as Cluster but require a bit more work. If you're like, well, actually, I don't even want to spend the money for EVA, like Craftfoam will do the same thing, but again, you have to put in more effort. You have to think about what you're actually using to work with the material. None of these are necessarily better than the other. It's about what you're trying to make and also what your budget is. If you're budgeting to use the more expensive foam, then go for it. That's fine, but you need to remember that that's not the only option that you have.
And do you need it?
Yeah, and do you need it? So for instance, Plastizote's really good for things like if you're doing LEDs, because it has really good diffusion properties. But if you're just sitting there like, I'm going to make a suit of armor, like using Plastizote would be pretty pointless. Like you do or just want to use EVA.
Fabrics?
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot that I had a slide that I was supposed to talk on here. So yes, again, doing your research, which I did touch on earlier, into different qualities is very important. I am going to say something potentially controversial, which is that if shocking. I think that there's definitely an upper price point with fabric. Like if something is like over sort of £10 a metre, I just won't buy it because you can probably find it for about £10 a metre at an absolute max. Like I don't think anything, there's definitely a scale before that, but past that point I feel like people take the mick a little bit. That being said, stuff like silk and these sort of fancy materials are going to cost you more. Again, it's a case of do you actually need that, or is you just looking for something that looks kind of like that? And if you just need something imitation, normally you can't actually tell the difference unless you get really close up. And most people, that's not what they need, right? The one thing that you will within that price range from like £1 a metre up to 10 find is what I was saying about how some fabrics will be quite weak and will fray quite badly and will be harder to work with. So it's about factoring in the time to work with those and being confident you've got the skills to finish them well enough that they're not going to just fall apart at the con. So yeah, some of these natural fabrics will cost more, shouldn't cost more than a certain amount. I've heard people buying sort of £20 a metre stuff before and it just makes me cry inside. I'm just like, why did you buy that?
Yeah, again, it's about scope. Is this for your Crown Championship of Cosplay entry, or is this for hanging out at the Minamicon bar?
Exactly.
What is the option here? Because again, you can. It's the printed fabric that always gets me.
Yeah.
Is you hear people spending like £50 a metre to get a fabric that has a specific design on it, and you're like, just paint it on.
It's con. Just paint it. You just paid £50 a metre for con.
And then you're like, yeah, I get you want a specific design, but again, like, is your goal to enter this in competition, that has like a 2k cash prize, and then you can justify the £50 a metre, or is this literally to hang out with your friends? Because if it is, you probably don't need this. We're going to save questions for the end if that's okay. Bulk buying supplies is really, really good for saving money on things that you are going to use. At the end of the day, there is no point in buying 10 glue sticks. You are going to use more than 10 glue sticks for your hot glue gun. I bulk buy them in 500 packs. I go on eBay, I say, eBay, I'm like, give me 500 glue sticks, does me for a year and a half, bam, done. Don't have to think about it. And it's cheaper.
Go through them.
Oh my god, I eat them. I'm just constantly. Yeah, we go through them so much, but also it's cheaper. You know you're going to use them. Glue gun sticks don't expire. So if someone's like, oh, it's, I don't know, I'm bad at numbers, so I'm not even going to give it. Why am I trying to do number examples? But the point is that it's always cheaper to bulk buy.
I hate to break it to you, but this is a budget panel.
I know, I'm really good at budgeting, but I have dyscalculia. So if you ask me for an actual number figure, I'm like, but I am good at budgeting. The same is true for things like paints, right? Hobbycraft has a paint I really like, and I basically wait until the paint has the 3 for 2. And then I just go and I buy 3 tubes of gold paint because again, I eat that stuff. Everything I make is gold for some reason. I'm gonna go through 3 tubes of gold paint, so I'm only gonna want to pay for 2 of them. You might as well. But the thing is, it's experience. You'll know what you go through constantly and what you don't. And once you know that, then it's always better to make sure you are bulk buying it.
Yeah, and as much as we joke about how everything you make is gold, it's true, and it's true for everyone, right? Everyone has their character tropes. you see your boy in the anime, and you're like, before they've even done anything, you're like, it's my character trope. I guess this one. Like everyone has that, so there will probably be a trend to the kinds of materials you constantly need. Threads are also on this. I think thread is an interesting one because people tend to think they have to, you buy the individual spool and you match the colour exactly and that kind of thing. And although that does have its merits, a lot of the time if you just get like a variety pack like this, it'll be a lot cheaper and there'll probably be something that's close enough, especially if you're not top stitching or anything like that, all of your seams are hidden. There's just, usually it's totally fine and a lot cheaper.
This can also be true for fabric as well. Like again, once you know what kind of trope you end up cosplaying.
I have so much black fabric.
yeah. Like I don't want to talk about how much that holographic gold I have. Like it's bad. But I know I'm going to use it in everything I can. So, and especially I like to buy a lot of fabric off of AliExpress. And once you do put more than 5 meters in your cart, they're like, hey, we see you have a problem. Would you like a discount? And you're like, yes, I would actually.
Gold trim.
Gold trim. Oh my God, gold trim. But you work that out as you go, and that is again, it's a planning thing, right? If you're sitting there thinking, well, in March I want to do this costume, and in October I want to do this costume. The trim for that one I could probably use for that one. So rather than buying 2 meters, I'll buy 5 meters. Oh look, now it's a discount because it's a lot buy, so on and so forth.
And one set of shipping.
And one set of shipping. True. So let's look at a bit of examples and some other things we can use. So recycling and reuse of fabric and clothing is a really good way to keep costs down for cosplays. So my examples, why are you laughing?
Because those two pictures next to each other. Before you lived in England.
And after, yeah.
The amount of sun you get.
Those are both my natural skin tones. So I just want to clarify that, okay? It's summer and winter. My Sakura cosplay from Danganronpa was my old school uniform. I cut the skirt up. The remnants from the skirt I used to make the sailor collar. The red fabric was some scraps I had lying around. Everything else is from my wardrobe. My Caster Gilgamesh formal attire there is my Kenjutsu gear, which is a type of martial art where you hit people with samurai swords. And then I put one of my winter scarves around the belt, and the only thing I made from scrap fabric was the overcoat. And this is, a really good way to keep costs down, is just to go through your wardrobe and be like, what do I have that already works for this? Because you actually probably do have stuff that you're not wearing. Yep, thank you, Aizawa.
Everything I'm wearing.
And it's not even clothing, right? It's bed sheets, curtains, things like that. Like everything that you are not using in your house can potentially be attacked with scissors and turned into something fun.
It's about creativity, right?
Absolutely.
Curtains and bed sheets you can get really cheap at charity shops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we do. I think we do talk about charity shops soon. But yeah, it's definitely everything around you is usable. Just because you're not going out specifically to fabric shop, it doesn't mean there isn't fabric accessible to you. Your top yesterday was 2 Primark tops sewn together and dyed.
And then the other 2 tops, so it was a black and white top, and then we dyed the one orange for the cosplay. But the remnants of the black and white top I can wear for work.
As a normal shirt.
Yeah. So I've now got a new shirt for work as well as the shirt for cosplay.
Yeah. So there's so many things you can do. Free material. We love free real estate. This is more for props than fabric, but the wood and plywood outside B&Q is free to take. There's no consequences. There's none.
If you move fast enough.
No, seriously. When they cut pieces for people, if they've got offcuts that they can't sell, they will put them in a bin outside, and you can just go and take those. And you can do so much prop making with that. That's my Inosuke swords. I'm gonna pull out one of my swords. I just went to B&Q, got some wood from outside the bin, and made my Inosuke swords with them. So that was a free prop. That's just there for you whenever you want. Goodbye. We're done with that. I want that off. Another example, again, this is just about getting creative, but trees are also there for you. So I was making Jack Frost, and we had a really bad storm, and my mum went to walk the dog, and she came home with this, and I kid you not, like 8-foot tall tree branch, and she was like, "This was in the middle of the road. Can you use this for your Jack Frost staff?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can, and now I don't have to go buy PVC."
Props to your mum for realising that it was actually fucking relevant and legit for you.
My mum
just walked past that.
Nah, my mum used to help me with all my costumes. She is like a pro. In regards to creativity, she is the woman. And yeah, so then my dad helped me cut this branch down. We put like PVC joints in and then repainted the whole thing. And now I have, you know, the heaviest weapon in all of mankind as a cosplay prop. But the thing is like you can get creative. You don't need to use Warbler and thermoplastic and foam to make props. You can use other materials. Cardboard is fantastic. This axe, So my Inosuke helmet is made out of a cereal box and sellotape. Because I was like, this is gonna be on my head. I don't want it to be heavy. I want it to be something that is breathable, and I want it to be lightweight, and also I need to travel with this. So this has come to France. I didn't bring to the States, but it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, it came to Italy, and it just goes in the suitcase, and because it's cardboard, it gets squished down, and then when I get there, I'm like, oh look, my mask is fine. And again, cardboard is free because you buy things that come in cardboard, so you just keep the cardboard. Or if you're like, oh, I don't have any cardboard because I'm a zero waste household person, I don't know. Just go to the Tesco's and be like, "You getting rid of that cardboard?" And then they'll be like, "Oh my god, please take the cardboard." Right? You don't even have to tell them it's for cosplay. You could be like,
assume you're moving house.
Give me that cardboard, and then you're done. You're sorted.
Every week you're like, "I'm moving house."
I am once again moving property.
No, weren't you moving house last week?
I didn't like it.
But this is the thing, right? Like, there's so many ways to get material for cheap or literally nothing.
Find someone with a crippling figure addiction.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Watch if your neighbours get a lot of Amazon deliveries.
Yeah. Steal their deliveries after they've taken the contents out. So again, we'll talk about thrifting. So this is again charity shops, vintage markets, free cycle events, online marketplaces. This is a really good way to get materials for your cosplays. And without having to break the bank. So if you're doing a character that maybe has like normal clothing and you're like, I need a blue t-shirt or something, just go to the charity shop, see what they got, pick something up for 50p, you're sorted. Yep, thanks Aizawa.
MVP of this panel is currently
MVP of this panel. Yeah, so charity shops are great. Vintage markets, ones where they do it by the kilo, that's always good. And you can find some really weird things there. Because sometimes you look at a costume and you're like, where am I going to find a skirt that looks exactly like this or like close enough that I can modify it? Vintage markets will have some weird stuff. Free cycle events are obviously good because they're free. Just like the wood outside B&Q, you can just take it. So yeah, there are lots of options available. Reusing costume pieces.
Look, it's
Inosuke! So the trousers that I'm wearing for Inosuke have already been featured in this panel. They are the same trousers I'm wearing for Cast of Gilgamesh, which is from my Kenjutsu gear. I am not going to make a hakama if I already have one in my wardrobe. And I will literally just reuse these all the time. The other picture is my Darkling costume, which I was like, I want like more drapey stuff. So I just kind of like walked into my area of my room that has scarves and just started like yeeting scarves onto my body. Scarves that I wear normally, doesn't matter. They're on the costume now. And yeah, just reusing pieces is really good. So I've got a top that I made for my Astolfo cosplay, which is just, it's a turtleneck, it's black velvet, and it's got poofy sleeves. And I've used that for Supreme King Jaden, Darkling, every version of Astolfo. I just made one top, and now I just have a generic black poofy sleeved dramatic top, and it works.
And Kenjutsu gear is obviously quite a specialized thing to own, but there are things that most people will own, or if you have particular hobbies that feature in anime, which, let's be honest, lots of us have. if you're a weeb, like, you end up having hobbies which reflect the fact that you're a weeb, right? So, like, yeah.
I think shoes is another thing where this comes into play. So Mariam and I have these stupid, like, cloppy wooden shoes on, and we bought these for our Genshin Impact costumes. And we just use them for everything. As soon as a costume like requires some sort of traditional like Japanese shoe, we're like, oh, we already have the copies. Perfect, we're good, sorted. So now we're going to talk about some examples of costs, because we have talked a lot, there's been a lot of theory, so we're going to show some actual examples of how much things cost. So this is my Sino cosplay, who's currently being remade, so he doesn't look like that anymore. But basically, when I was making this costume, I went through on AliExpress, on eBay, looked up all the materials I wanted on Polyprops.
Did you mean to write trim twice on this slide?
Yes, I did. This costume is a lot of trim. In fact, it's mostly
both
trim.
sets of trim were £21.88.
Oh, that's clearly
exactly.
a mistake. No, that's clearly a mistake. Okay, anyway, this costume is not a lot of clothing and is mostly embellished trim. It's like a crop top and hot pants, and that's about it.
You never wear outfits like that.
What can I say?
Missing shirt.
So the point is, though, is that I totaled all of this up before I spent anything. And was like, okay, am I happy to spend, 80 odd quid on this costume? This ended up being a competition build, so I decided, yes, I was happy to spend 20 quid alone on the blingiest trim I could find. This wasn't for competition, I probably wouldn't have done that. I would have gotten a normal trim and lived my best life, but I wanted to be shiny. Again, for the fabrics, right, because it was a competition build, I decided to buy a nice iridescent fabric for the lining of my skirts. That's a decision I made to put that cost in, but I thought, I'm happy to spend 30-ish quid on the fabric for this build. And we've worn these like a ton. We overwore them last year. Every single convention we were in these costumes. So for me, cost-benefit analysis, I thought it was worth it. Now you'll see not everything that's actually in the costume is listed on here, and that's because everything else that's not listed was leftovers from projects that I'd done before.
But the reason you can do that is because the same way you factored in £20 of trim for this costume, you didn't use all of that trim.
Oh, I did.
It says here that you didn't.
Oh.
This includes the trim for a second costume.
Oh, no, I had to. Yeah, that's true. Sorry, I was thinking of something else. I was like, no, I definitely did.
No, so as long as you're factoring in everything you're buying, if you then end up using the spare for later on, you've just got it, right? You've already factored that into your budget.
And same with the wig. This wig I actually bought for a different character, and then it arrived, and I thought, this is my Canis wig. And I thought, I actually don't like this for this character. Oh, now I've got this wig, I shouldn't have bought it. And then I was like, oh wait, this is perfect for Sino, I'll just use it for this. So yeah, definitely that was
Also, not about the actual literal numbers. The amount of money you're happy to spend on a costume will vary, and the amount you should put into particular elements will vary. This is just an example of a breakdown of something that you've done. I think it's important to mention, from an accessibility point of view, both of us we don't buy as much fabric as Elena would, our friend who makes the most amazing ball gowns, who is plus sized, who will obviously end up spending more on fabric than we will. So I think it's important to mention that we do recognise that the exact numbers written here won't necessarily reflect everyone in this audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is another example of a costume that I made. This is my Wonder Woman costume, which is mostly just leatherette. And it's all upholstery leatherette as well. I was not spending like £10 a metre to get like nice leatherette when you can buy stuff that's used to make sofas for £5 a metre. It just wasn't happening. Like, I don't care that much. So this...
But again, there's an upper limit on the quality of fabric and the amount you pay.
Yeah, absolutely. This was one where I didn't want to actually spend that much money on, so I did just want to use the cheaper material. The other thing about this costume is that there's actually thermoplastic on this costume, which isn't in the total because I got this thermoplastic as a prize for winning another competition. So that was a way that I used something that wasn't actually part of my budget to basically offset costs that I probably would not have been able to actually factor in.
Same idea as selling a costume and then that being your
So that's important to note. That's my other costume. There's so many armor builds in this. I don't know why I did this. This was a fun costume to make because it is basically all armor. I needed to buy buy either leggings or a top to go under this, and because I knew that a lot of my cost was going to be on the cloak and on the actual armor build itself, I didn't really want to then have to go buy stretch fabric to make a pair of leggings and make a top, because that was going to be like more money than I really wanted to spend on this. So I ended up going to Primark and I got a burgundy pajama top and leggings for 50p each in the sale section. So that was nice. And that meant that then when I was looking for shoes to cover, because normally I try and use one pair of shoes and then basically build a temporary cover on, so I'm not buying a pair of shoes every time, because I saved money on pieces that go under the armour, I was like, oh, I'm going to splurge a bit and get a pair of white shoes, and they will be specifically the shoes for this costume. And Primark again, thanks for the £10 for the shoes, problem solved. But the wood for this costume, so I used to make the sword, this was scrap wood that I got, again, from B&Q. You can just walk in and take it. Yeah, this is another, this one I've put as an example because there's a lot of different pieces on this costume. So not only is there like normal fabric, but there's also leatherette, there's also fur, and then there's also armor pieces as well. So this is kind of an example of a costume that has like everything on it. This is an example of a costume though that has had a lot more work and money put into it because I first made it in 2015 and I still wear it now. And so I've actually redone a lot of pieces. So I've had at least 3 pairs of Astolfo shoes for this costume. I've had at least 2 wigs. And I've remade the gauntlets 3 or 4 times. So that cost, that is the base cost. That's how much it cost me to make the costume to begin with. I've probably then spent at least half of that again in order to fix up the costume to it's where I want it to be. And that's the other thing you need to remember is that if you're making costumes, or even if you're buying costumes, you need to factor in that the initial cost isn't going to be all that you're going to spend on it if it's something that you want to wear a lot. If it's something that needs fixing up, you also need to factor in fixing costs as well.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever made a costume, worn it for the first time, and then been like, yeah, cool, that was perfect.
Yeah, oh, wow, it's so good. Never have to do that again. No, every
No,
time we wear a
every
costume,
single costume.
every single time. Because you bump, even if you have made it like properly, you bump into things, people bump into you. You go to the bathroom and you sit down too fast, and you're like, no, I ripped that. Oh God. Everyone's been there. Or in the case of my poor Astolfo boots, I went to Lucca in Italy and it was pouring with rain and my boots just disintegrated. And I was like, I guess I need new boots.
More often than not, though, I do think when you wear it for the first time for a full day at a con, you will notice things where you're just like, why did I make it like this?
So yeah,
we're
now
back on time.
we are back on time. Look at that, so good. So does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns?
Yes, we've left 15 minutes at the end for anything.
Yes.
It's a small thing, but if you are looking for the fancier fabric, sometimes Coscraft does a reduced to clear on some of their satin fabrics. I managed to grab like 5 meters of Dull Duchess satin for like 10 quid. Just this
Nice.
They obviously by the time it gets clearance, the colours are limited. But if you are just looking to grab something you know you're likely to use, keep an eye on their website every now and then.
That's really smart.
Yeah, and also again, if you've planned in advance what you're making for that year, and then a fabric that you're going to need in 8 months goes on clearance on Coscraft, you know that you need it.
Free real estate. Also, like I always feel like it's always good to look at clearance fabrics because some cosplayers just ask for the ugliest colours like you've ever seen. And it is the ones that are left in clearance because like normal sewing people will be like, why would I ever make anything out of this? And you're like, it's perfect. Yes.
Also, I was quite fortunate. Down near where I live, there's a lady who does reupholstering and things, and she occasionally goes to one of the local car boot sales, and she was selling like bolts that she wouldn't be able to make like an armchair cover for or whatever, and she was selling it for like dirt cheap. So I managed to get decent upholstery velvet in exactly the colours I wanted. Not for a costume, but for something I wanted to reupholster myself at home, because I was upcycling some furniture, and it was like £5, and I've still got like this lovely teal and dark blue upholstery grey velvet, and I must have at least 5 meters of each of them, probably for like a tenner, if that.
Yeah, sometimes it's about who you know
Yeah.
and just about like working out your local landscape
I didn't
almost.
anticipate meeting her though. It was just fortunate that she was there. I do look out for her whenever I'm there.
Because we have the same thing in Milton Keynes. We've got a fabric stall that twice a year does just like a £1 a metre de-stash where they take over the car park and just it's piles of fabric and you've just got to fight all of these
60p,
like
60p,
60p a metre and you've just got to fight all of these like tiny Muslim ladies who are just like it's true.
I am one of the tiny Muslim ladies.
It's really funny. Like you go there and it's just you like looking for cosplay fabric and all of the like the Muslim moms like It's a wonderful experience.
It's so good.
But like I know that Milton Keynes does that because I know that the fabric store is somewhere I get things from. They'll post it on their Facebook. So yeah, it is a bit of an
And also
know-how.
for things like that and things like what you just mentioned, you don't necessarily even need to know you need it for X costume. Like I have a bolt of just really nice red burgundy-ish satin that I just have because it was cheap and I was like, everything I make is black or red, you know, these are the colours.
Great.
We accidentally stumbled across across one.
That was an accident, I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. Just ignore me. Whatever.
Okay.
It's fine. We're friends.
Alright, so moving on.
We accidentally stumbled on one of these where we are in Coventry. But there are around the country quite a handful of scrap stores that are charity organisations who employ people with disabilities to sort through recycling, but who also have on the side essentially a membership style, pay a tenner for an entire year of access to what is essentially a warehouse of crap. And it's we've picked up all sorts of things, and it
It's
can
like
be
bottle
like
caps and shit, isn't it?
bottle-
Yeah,
bottle
when they
cap,
do like stuff at schools.
bottle caps,
Fabric.
fabric. The place the place closest to us
Mannequins.
has whole bolts of fabric that they don't have a use for basically at highest £4 a metre for like top quality, really nice, in weird colours, obviously. But really nice stuff, along with all the sort of weird little bits and pieces like Christmas decorations that you could never find a use for nowadays because it came out in the mid-80s when for some reason they decided everything needed to be neon green for Christmas. They just have all sorts of little bits. So if you need, for example, baubles that are the right size for earrings, places like that just randomly have lots of tubs of crap. Sometimes they will literally be like,
recycling
here's
shops
here's a
Sometimes
giant
items are free.
tube of paper clips that we have no use for.
Yeah,
Put them in
recycling
your
shops
pockets.
are really good. There's one in Cardiff called Recreate, and you'll find that they're in most cities. But they are linked to charities for the research. The reason I was going to bring it up is because my Cast to Gilgamesh picture, so the third one in Some Money, All Thoughts, that was made using fabrics from Recreate in Cardiff. That entire costume cost me about £4.50. Because it was literally just all of the fabric from that shop and then a whole thing of foam as well. So definitely, if you are closer, you are not going to find them if you're in the middle of the countryside, but if you know where like your biggest town is.
No, you say that. I live in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, and it's in the middle of buttfuck nowhere in Wiltshire.
The majority of them aren't though. So if you don't know where your local one is and you're sitting in this room thinking, how do I find my local one? Look for town centres.
Stuff like either where your closest recycling plant is, they might have a one that's paired up with them, or things like if you just type in scrap store, that's usually what they're called. And you will find them.
Also, if things aren't on, because some of these places won't be online, you are currently at an Minamicon with people from all over the UK. Just ask people, like they'll know.
Where are you from? Where do you buy?
Where are you from? Are you from near me? No? Oh, shit. Trying to make potential friends that don't live, like, miles away.
You had your hand up, sorry.
Yeah, what was I going to say? Where is this store in Milton Keynes you go to, and when, and you said they have a Facebook page. I have a friend who lives in Keynes, so I might arrange to go and visit them a bit more frequently.
Those of you who have friends in Milton Keynes, or for those of you who go to HotaruCon, which is in Milton Keynes, Neil's Fabrics is the name of it. It's not a shop, it's a market stall. So the market at the MK Centre is during the week, and on their Facebook page they will say when they do their biannual come and have the Hunger Games for fabric in the car park. That's basically what it was. I'm still
one
using.
in September.
There's one. It's normally spring and autumn. I'm still using the black fabric
Same.
from that one.
So
much of it. It's so good though. Yes.
Yeah. Also, just on the charity shops, if you can find really large ones, there's one near Cambridge. In
I live in
Milton.
Cambridge.
Is it the Emmaus?
It is the Emmaus.
Yeah, the Emmaus is fucking huge.
On a Saturday morning, Because
I live in Huntington.
Emmaus.
EMMAUS.
Yeah.
Actually, Emmaus, not just in Cambridge, but have large sites in
All
various
over the
places around the
country,
So
country.
what's that?
EMAAUS.
Yeah. They do, like, on a Saturday morning, I think a Sunday morning as well, like, all of their donations before it goes into the store where it's actually priced. And it's like, you can find so much in their, like, random bin stuff. And it's like, it's everything. They also have clothes, they have furniture, they have, like, material, they have bed sheets. I don't know if you've been there, but it's like, if you're looking for cheap fabric and you can go in there and buy bed sheets and curtains for like next to nothing, and it's huge. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, it's like if you're there early, you can buy some really cool stuff, especially for cosplay, because it's like before it's priced, you get stuff for like 50p, 10p, for like £1, and it's like, yeah, it's like if you're there and you're willing to search through it and be lucky enough to fight all the old ladies that are there also at the crack of dawn.
So that's going to be, so next year we'll run a panel called How to Fight Old Ladies.
Sharpen your elbows.
It'll be a self-defense panel. We'll run it.
Self-defense, because the assumption is the old ladies are stronger than you.
Yeah, no,
They'll get you. They've had decades more practice.
There's like implants in the elbows.
Are there any other questions? Well, if there are no other questions, thank you all for attending. We hope you learned something, hope you take something away. We can see beautiful cosplayers, hopefully next year, that are made with proper budgets in mind. And enjoy the rest of your convention. Get out of here.
Thank you.